Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Lindsay Reiser, and we're going to begin this hour with breaking news. President Biden says Israel has proposed a roadmap for a potential ceasefire and the next phase for Gaza once the war with Hamas has ended. He made that announcement after Israeli military officials confirmed they have expanded their operations in central Rafah. The president unveiled a new three-phase initiative. It includes a ceasefire along with the return of all hostages from Gaza.
It's time to begin this new stage, for the hostages to come home, for Israel to be secure, for the suffering to stop. It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin.
Let's bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, really the first time we're hearing the president use those terms in such stark language.
On not only this front, but also in response to the verdict of former President Donald Trump. But first on the Middle East, calling and supporting this, calling for acceptance of and supporting this ceasefire proposal put forward by Israel. Doing so, though, at a time in the Middle East when many may not be aware of it. And he's doing this also just days before he's headed overseas to Europe for a series of meetings with leaders there, where he may be confronted not only by them, but by people in the streets about the ongoing conflict, saying that this three-phase plan is perhaps Israel's best opportunity to end the conflict. And given that it has successfully degraded Hamas's military capabilities, the president feels now is the time to make this happen. The details of this, of course, are complex, and nothing has been easy in terms of this process, but it allows the president to at least show a domestic and a global audience that he is still working on a solution, that he supports this specific one, and that Israeli leadership, as beleaguered as it may be on the world stage, needs to push along with the rest of the world for Hamas to accept it.
And Ed, before we talk about his remarks toward the former president's guilty verdict, he also really put the responsibility from here on out squarely on the shoulders of the leaders for Hamas, saying Qatar is transmitting this to him, essentially saying, let's see if they put their money where their mouth is in terms of ending the conflict.
Yeah, and that's designed, Lindsay, in part to address frustrations they have here about the fact that, in their view, Hamas, in essence, has gotten off a little easy in all this. Trying to remind people, certainly in briefings we have with officials quite often, that, Hamas started this round of the decades-long conflict, this very deadly, historically gruesome attack on the Jewish people. And so if you're upset about what happened, public opinion really should be turning its ire towards those leaders of Hamas who, in essence, remain in hiding. Literally and figuratively, and are not being held to account the way that the American president is by people here and around the world, by the Israeli leadership, and by various world bodies, be it the International Criminal Court, the United Nations, and whatnot. So I thought one of the most striking parts of his remarks was sort of saying to those that have been protesting here in the United States and around the world, look, if you really are in support of a ceasefire, then turn all of that attention and energy that you've generated towards the leadership of Hamas and urge them to take this deal, because this is the best one they may get. Don't, in essence, what he's inferring, direct it at me.
Right.
Because here I am trying to make this happen while also defending a sovereign state's right to defend itself.
Trying to take some of the pressure off himself. Right. Let's switch gears now and talk about his response to Trump's verdict, reminding people this was a state case, not federal. He had nothing to do with it, but also saying it's dangerous and irresponsible for anyone to say this is rigged because they don't agree with it. Not only saying shame on Trump, but shame on the people echoing his sentiments.
And this is sort of the legal version of the argument he's been making since after the 2020 campaign, that you can't just believe an election's fair if you're the one winning it. In essence, saying respect the process. His entire presidency, his entire reason for running in the first place was to respect and sustain the process, the institutional, the democratic norms of this country. And by saying what he said there, that the justice system has existed for nearly 250 years and should be respected, he's saying more broadly to Trump supporters, be they elected Republican officials, wannabe Trump administration officials, or regular everyday Americans who stand by him, look, this is how it works, respect the process. And notably also saying, look, as part of that, Trump has the right to appeal, and he will, and we'll let that process play out. These are his first extended remarks on this in the roughly, 20 hours or so since the verdict. It's not expect it to be a subject of the president's rhetoric and conversation much in the public space going forward, other than to mention it in passing along with all the other reasons why he believes Americans shouldn't be voting for the former president. Watch his campaign, watch real partisan Democrats in the coming days, how they talk about the former president. Do they add the words convicted felon to their references to him? Or do they do other things in their advertising or social media to sort of drive home this point? But for the Biden campaign, they tell us, busy month ahead. He's on the world stage in Europe over the next 2 weeks. They're doing a lot of fundraising. They're focused on issues like restoring access to abortion services. June is Pride Month. They'll be talking up gay rights, LGBTQ rights, the concerns with women's reproductive rights, gun violence, climate change, trying to keep focused on what they've done, what they would do, and then make the character argument against the former president, arguing the guy who today demonstrated he can do the job on the world stage is worth 4 more years. Lindsay.
Okay. And Ed O'Keefe, just remind our viewers, his first extended comment since that verdict, but the president not answering questions. Ed O'Keefe, thank you for your reporting.
Take care.